Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final instalment of the Highland Reserve. For now at least. It is still very much part of our franchise series, but we have finally been offered a new opportunity to manage the development of a new facility. So, today we are going to have a walkthrough of the reserve in what I hope is a noticeably improved quality recording. I'm also going to throw in some new cinematics to show off each habitat as we go. The guest camera, incidentally, was something I knew existed but never knew how to access it. They're like the cinematic cameras. Anyway, I love the shop and restaurant builders now. This is the first one I've ever built and it turned out okay. Certainly some improvements could be made, some interior detail, but this was more of an experiment than anything. I don't know why people complain about being tired in this zoo. I haven't seen anyone using any of the benches that I've placed. Maybe I need some pedicurists on standby to get people to sit down. As we approach the first habitat, we get a glimpse of one of the designated poop factories in the reserve. There are a few. I won't point them all out, but it's worth noting. I have to be strict on population control with some of these species because they breed like crazy, and then their greater number produce an unfathomable amount of manure for the surrounding farms. It's quite impressive actually. Having the goats as the first habitat on the route is quite a useful thing. It sets the expectation for the zoo. If we'd put the badgers first, I think people would have been slightly disappointed with the rest of the zoo. There is a route I had intended when I was putting things together. Though I don't force guests to go a certain way, I think it does make sense to go around clockwise, so that's the way we're going to go. Which brings us nicely on to animal number 2. Or the first animals to be housed at the Highland Reserve. Or at least the descendants of those animals, as we are some 70 years on from then. I think I showed a bit of the marsh mud pit at the end of that episode, but it's a bit clearer here. Although I can tell that I have used the faux rocks and not even changed the colours. The main change to this habitat is the pig shelter. As I said at the time, the wooden things we initially made didn't count as shelter, so the pigs didn't use them too much. These ones are much better. They use an arch roof piece, so they protect against the elements in the eyes of the game. And I used curved metal pipes or tubes to give it the corrugated effect that I wanted. The green is still visible on the inside, but I actually like it now. I think it works quite well. It's got a bit of character to it, you know? I did have an issue at one point where the piglets would be able to climb up onto the top of these shelters and then they'd parkour onto the roof of the stable. And they'd not be able to get down from there, but they'd be classed as escaped. It was a bit annoying. There's a lot of subtle effort that's hidden behind these first habitats. It's not a lot to look at, but I thought it was a nice touch to show as we move on by. I still have the boxy guest building that used to have leaves and fake tree branches inside, like there is over by the education board. But I had a lot of issues with access. People couldn't get to the toilets and my keepers were struggling to use the staff room. So I cut down a lot of it, just out of frustration mostly. I did consider going back and changing more in the pig and chicken habitats. I didn't have a whole lot of room for expansion. I think one thing I would like to do is go back at some point, maybe not in this zoo, maybe in a sandbox, and make a whole range of chicken coops. As long as they can be accessed, that is. I'm still not over the hard shelter issues, in case you couldn't tell. Just think there's some logic that could be applied here. One thing I do like about the reserve is it doesn't feel like a zoo in the traditional sense. Maybe that's down to the species we have. I guess saying that I would compare it to more of like a farmyard or an educational centre. Somewhere you take your kids to learn about farming. You probably have a big play area somewhere with climbing frames and maybe a zip line, have some trampolines and an old school fudge shop. They would almost definitely have donkey rides. I should have put in one of those strips that almost looks like a jousting lane. I remember you used to go and sit on a donkey as they were being led around one. Thankfully it was only children, and they would only operate for a limited time, so you'd hope they were still happy donkeys. This barn was the build where I wanted to do something bigger, more impressive, more of a statement. And it has become a centrepiece of the zoo in a way. It does stand out quite a bit. The donkeys only seem to use the middle area of it though. There are no access issues. They just prefer to sleep outside, it seems. Sure. It's simple. But you have to admit, it does look good. Oh. Hello. Just interrupting one of our educational talks there. That's another feature I never used before this series. I seem to remember them being there, but I may be remembering someone else's video. I've mentioned before that this is a new PC setup, so there are bound to be some teething issues. As it happens, I have recorded this all once already, the walkthrough and the cinematics. All in the wrong size. Ah well. When I did pass through here the first time, I saw that I had left a vista point and a hand wash station in the donkey habitat, from where the old walkthrough used to be. So if nothing else, I guess it gave me an opportunity to tidy up a bit before having guests around. Oh, excuse you. I wanted to fill in the gaps between the enclosures a bit more in this zoo. It's not something I usually bother with, but, well, you'll notice where I haven't. It creates a gap where it's a lot more apparent if you leave it. You might not even notice where they have been filled in, but maybe that's kind of the point. Sheep. Another poop factory. And a bit of a breeding nightmare, actually. Obviously we have many females and only get a male in for a couple of months to do the deeds. So we end up doubling the population every time we get one in. And then if I miss the growth stage, then I have an inbreeding fiasco that needs to be stopped. Generally I just keep these and the goats female for the majority of the time. I might have said the same about the cows, but the gestation and maturation times are a lot longer, so it's not as constant an issue. I always meant to do something with that staff building. It's fine. It's just nothing really interesting there. It's purely to let the keepers chill at this end of the zoo. I never really showed off this education wall. And now that I look at it up close, it's not as smooth as I thought when I made it. But that's okay. There's quite a bit of running needed here for what is quite a small facility. And I think when I was building this way also, I was planning to have a complete loop, so then the zoo would be a circle. So this would have been connected up eventually, but when I built the giant wall of crayons and the badger habitat, a new layout formulated in my dome, which I think works better. I'll probably use the loop in a couple of zoos in this series anyway, so I'll take the opportunities to do something a little bit different when I can. I still love this badger habitat. It definitely has competition for the #1 spot with some of the later builds, but I really felt like this was a turning point in the zoo as a whole. This really set the tone for what I did next and inspired a couple of much more thought out enclosures. I've seen a couple of videos recently talking about the possibility of Planet Zoo 2, which I would be excited about, but I kind of hope they bring out a couple more DLCs for this first, so I have a bit more time for this series. I'm wondering if they'll add the foliage brush similar to the Jurassic World one. There's a part of me that thinks that would be cool. It would make it a lot easier for people who don't have as much patience for the tedious bits to enjoy the decorating aspect of the game. It's always a bit frustrating when you finally get good at something or start to see improvement and then a new version comes out and it's obsolete. I do hope they bring the Planet Coaster 2 path system though. I don't want to get good at this version of that. Now this is probably the number one habitat for me. Partly because the deer are so cool, but it's just a very natural, real environment with a really aesthetically pleasing setting. That's why I had to lower the fences a bit. Why would you want to have a wire mesh through that view? Come on. Lift your head up, big fella. There we go. Now that's a postcard. Right. Now watch this while I sprint to the other side. Beautiful. Sure, it's a bit of a trek around with not a lot else in the area to look at, but I think it's worth it. I'd certainly go for a stroll. Looks like some of the food needs changing in there. Usually doesn't last that long. Okay. We can see a bit of the scenery here. Now it's far from perfect. There's still a lot that could be done to make this area feel more natural. But purely as a way for framing this essentially barren alpaca pen, I think it works really well. I'm very critical of things that I do, so it's hard to be happy with this enclosure as it is. But with the amount of effort that went into the surroundings, I really think that it helps a lot. And only as an add-on to the deer enclosure as well. I know when I started I said there may be a chance to get llama or alpacas, one or the other, not both. But when I finished the deer enclosure, I was thinking that I'd be moving on to the next zoo by now. But thanks to the new PC, this got added, and I'm really glad it did. I love when you go to a place and think, that's it, I've seen everything here. And then you stumble onto a secret area like this. Makes you feel like you got more than you expected. There seems to be quite a few people needing the restroom at this end of the zoo. This is not a massive place. The toilets are in one spot. Use them on the way. When I go somewhere, I don't expect there to be multiple bathrooms dotted about. Plan your trips better, Pixel people. Yeah, anyway, we've arrived at the Swan Pond. Some ducks would be perfect to add here, but I doubt they'll be in the game anytime soon. It didn't register in my mind until recently, but we've only had a couple of clutches of eggs for the swans since we've had them. They seem to stay babies for a very long time. Granted, I have the aging at 5 times, but that's comparing them to other animals we have. I'm surprised. I don't know much, or anything about birds, but I would have expected them to grow quite quickly. Something I would like to suggest for Planet Zoo 2 is definable free roaming areas. We need to be able to set an area where animals like swans and peacocks can walk freely. That isn't an enclosure. It'd be like using the knoll barriers, except the animals wouldn't be able to cross them. Sure, it's not realistic, but these are the sort of animals that would be able to just wander where they want. We have a bit of a walk to the next habitat now, so we might have to employ a bit of an awkward run walk to get there. I tried to use the widest paths for the main thoroughfare to reduce the amount of congestion, but it seems like having habitats on both sides kind of negates that a bit. The paths are still filling up quite a lot. That's why I wanted more of a detour for the deer, to ease that a bit. It would be nice to sort of direct the guests. I don't know if that's possible actually. Maybe there's a way of doing that. I know there's guest queue paths, but I genuinely have no idea how or why to use them. Maybe that's something I need to look into. Ah, we're just in time to see the cows being fed on the talk. Roar? What are you teaching these people exactly? These are herbivores with no natural predators. What could you possibly need to growl at? This cowshed is easily my favourite building in this zoo. Even though it is a box, it has some really nice detail. Some small touches that elevate it a bit. Like the skylight. And the doors. Both doors actually. Even the little troughs are pretty cool. Looks a little bland at first. Once you dig a little deeper, you can see these little gems. And here we arrive at the final enclosure. Not the best view through this one-way glass for the guests, if I'm being honest. Although, saying that, looks like all 3 foxes are underground at the moment anyway. I have one male fox in here that is kind of like a piebald colouring. It's the same orange and white, but it's more patchy than a normal, you know, underbelly being white and the rest being that rusty orange. And this fox has produced every different genetic morph as babies. It was the best investment I think I've made in the animals. The leucistic ones seem to be recessive because they only have normal young with only one white parent, but this fox has done it all, and consistently. I cannot advise you do what I'm doing right now. I'm allowed to climb because I own it, but you should absolutely stay off the barriers. Well, that's it for our time here in the Highlands. For a newcomer trying to prove himself in the world of conservation, I think we've done a great job. And this reserve will remain as an enduring testament to British farming and wildlife. Thank you to everyone who has followed along with this first part of my Ultimate Keeper series. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope you'll join me for part 2, starting next Friday, right here on Virar VKG. It is going to be huge. So, for one final time, ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the Highland Reserve.